Hey, I'm really excited to finally be talking to my good DM friend, Jason T. Lewis. How are you, dude?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the podcast. And yeah, we were talking a little bit off stage
Oh, yeah, yeah, whatever. Yeah.
um, about the fact that we've been DMing back and forth and know each other and know common people for years, but have never actually talked to each other, and even in this quasi in person way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really weird. We were talking about just how social media kind of does that. You feel like you tend to know somebody. You can have a gazillion conversations like DM and stuff like that. And then this is literally the first time we've been on camera before. So at some point we'll actually have to meet up and
Yeah,
actually see who's taller.
yeah.
Probably you, I'm thinking.
I don't know. I'm 5'11", but probably
Oh,
closer
well,
to.
see, there you go. I'm 5'6". So
Yeah,
yeah.
I was 5'11" when I was in my 20s, so I'm probably a little shorter now.
I think I was born 5'6". I don't think I've grown since I was birth, according to I joked once when my mother was still alive. She didn't think it was funny. I said, my mother was in labor for like a week. She goes, stop telling people that. So
Yeah, well, you know, we all have stories to tell.
yeah. Oh yeah. So one of the things that really I reached out to Jason about was on sponsorships and brand deals because of something he tweeted on X. Is it Xed? What do you
I,
call it now?
I don't know that I've ever called it X. I just like
Yeah.
from a marketing and branding standpoint, that was such a horrible move.
Oh, it's like what? Now you're
Yeah,
older. Oh, okay.
I still call it Twitter,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't even really go on a ton anymore. I just every week or so I'll share something or respond to something.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because and again something we were talking about before, but I took like a 6-month break from social media and actually came back and deleted most of my platforms. I kept Twitter and I kept my Facebook profile, but I still hardly go on any of those.
Yeah.
So I thought it was so cool when I popped on Twitter the other day and I see your tweet about sponsorships, which we'll get to, and I'm like, oh, I really hope he's willing to talk because I'm all over the place on this.
Yeah.
But tell everybody just a little about your background. I was reading today, like I think you've been in this biz for 30 plus years as well.
Yep.
You've got an incredible channel, Painfully Honest Tech. I've always loved that, but you also have done music and things. So just tell everybody a little bit more about the amazing Jason T. Lewis.
Well, I started out as a singer and musician when I was younger. I was in a children's choir at the university where I grew up, West Virginia University, when I was like 8 years old. And then I sort of went through all that and started out college as a music major. And I was in my first band when I was 15. And that slowly morphed into I became an English major.
Mm.
But I always had bands, and then moved to New York City in the early 90s, 1993. Lived there for 11 years doing the music thing, singer songwriter, had a band, made a couple
Wow.
of records, did some touring, um, got to open up for people that are famous.
Very cool.
But then we went back to West Virginia where I was from not long after my daughter was born.
Mm.
And my music thing had just kind of run its course. And I was in a down period. My wife was like, "You've got to figure out, like, hey, what's the next thing?" So I decided to start writing what I thought would be a novel. Ended up sending it out to a couple of MFA programs to get it. I found out, now this is why MFA was interesting to me. It's a terminal degree, so you can teach at the college level with a
Mm.
terminal degree. And I was like, well, that's better than teaching, junior high. so I ended up at the University of Iowa, got an MFA in fiction writing, wrote a novel, and actually wrote songs to go with the novel. And then I worked for the University of Iowa for about 12 or 13 years.
Wow.
I was at first I worked at the business school teaching public speaking and all kinds of different things. Public speaking and ethics. It was an interesting
Interesting.
combo.
Yeah.
and I helped run their writing program, their writing center for students. And then I went over to the medical school, and I was the director of the writing and humanities program over there for about 10 years, and
Wow.
did literary journal. And we started a podcast. Podcast is still going 15 years later. So
Really?
yeah, we Short Code Podcast. My friend and former assistant Dave was really interested in podcasting, but didn't have any background in
Yeah.
audiovisual type stuff, and I did. So when I got there, we just bought a cheap Behringer mixer and 4 cheap MXL microphones, and he took off with it. And I just kind of was there to advise and, sort of be an executive producer role. And yeah, ran a conference, taught a couple of classes to med students there. But the whole idea was, you know, medicine is such a big deal when it comes to the humanity of the people that the doctors are dealing with. I mean, people are usually at the doctor potentially on the worst day of their lives.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of humanities training for doctors. So I was kind of there as like the person who would offer different ways to get involved and do, take one of my classes on literature or writing, or, we do lunchtime stuff like figure drawing and that kind of thing. So did that for 10 years, but I started YouTube just kind of as on a whim. And around 2013, 2014, I was going to play video games with a friend of mine. PlayStation 4 had just come out. I'd never had a gaming headset, with a microphone and the whole deal, but I needed one if I was going to talk to him. So I went to YouTube and I watched a bunch of videos on gaming headsets, and then kind of triangulated to one that I thought was in my price range that everybody was saying was pretty good. And then I got it home, and it was awful.
Oh, no.
It was, I mean, I've been in studios and been in music and done on audio engineering and all that stuff for years. So I don't know if my expectations were too high, but it was just terrible. And I thought, like, all these people were saying it was pretty good. I got to make a video saying that, no, it's really not that good.
Yeah.
And so I did a reboxing video on my way back to the Best Buy. And I did some of those. I went out and got a bunch of headsets and just kind of ran through them, and found the ones that I thought were better than others and that kind of thing. And next thing you know, I'm still just kind of doing it on a part-time basis, but companies are starting to reach out to me, and they're saying, like, hey, can we send you this, that, or the other thing? And of course, that's very cool. The first few times that it happens, you're like, oh yeah, I'm big time now. But but then in 2016, I decided to, I think around 2016, I was at 10,000 or so subscribers, in that 2016, 2017 area.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what? I am going to just sort of push all my chips to the center, and I'm going to go all in on YouTube, and I'm going to see what happens if I make the effort that I think needs to be made to build an audience. So for about 18 months, I made 3 videos a week.
Wow.
And I barely ever missed an upload, and by the middle of 2018, I had a few viral videos that were sub 1 million views. I had a series called Can You Trust, where I reviewed other tech reviewers.
Oh, wow.
It sounds worse than it is. My intent was always like, well, I think it's really important that the audience knows kind of where these people are coming from, and what their good points are, and what their focuses are, and just kind of, I don't think I rarely ever said you couldn't trust someone.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like, it was more of a qualified, like, you have to understand that this person is coming from this angle or that angle kind of thing. And that did pretty well. I did all the big guys, Linus and MKBHD, and
I was going to ask if you did him. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And so that did pretty well. And then I went from gaming headsets to regular, like, audiophile headphones, and then started to move into smartphones because mobile audio was always a big deal to me. And this was as Apple was taking away the headphone jack. And some companies still were focused on audio and others weren't. And then the AirPods came out. So I kind of just moved over to smartphones. And I think it was 2018. I think that was the iPhone 11.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
And I just made a ranty video. Like I'd already put out a video that day, and I just was kind of feeling my oats, and I made a ranty video about how Apple was really frustrating with whatever they were doing with the phone that year. And I titled it, "I Think I'm Done." And that was the thumbnail. And then the title was, "I'm not pre-ordering the new iPhone." And next thing, literally 3-4 days later, it was over 1 million views.
Get out.
And I was just like, what is this? How do I bottle and sell this?
What is this madness?
I mean, because literally it was a 12-minute video of me like just riffing off the top of my head. And I don't think it's the kind of video that would go for 1 million views these days, but it must have struck a chord, and it just, rode the wave for a while. And I ended up with like 1.4 million views by the time it settled down.
Dude, that's cool.
And by October of 2018, I had 120,000 subscribers.
Good for you.
And so I just kept plugging away at that. And I went full time on YouTube October of 2019. And, when I would say before, I would always say full time on YouTube. But then I realized that like I'm a full time creator. YouTube is like one of the things, but, and it might be the main thing, but, I did live streams on Amazon for them. And I've done a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
To kind of make ends meet. And it's been an education. I mean, 9/11 or not, our most recent 9/11 like event, COVID, happened, just a couple of months really after I went full time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
The whole tone of where people were and the conversations that were happening, like everything changed. So I just kind of had to like, I didn't want to be like ranting and raving about smartphone, like the refresh rates of smartphone screens.
Yeah.
While, there's a worldwide pandemic. So I had to kind of adjust. And, that's been a big part of doing this as a full-time person, so now it's like 6 years later.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's been an interesting ride for sure.
Yeah. And it's funny you point out that, I do other things because, I don't know. I hate being boxed in. I hate being labeled. So the only time I ever say I'm a YouTuber is if I'm talking to the guy working on our dishwasher and he goes, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a YouTuber," because he gets it. If I say content creator, he's like, "Oh."
So
okay.
I've tried like I make online video.
Yeah.
And that confuses people too. Yeah. So I just say I make YouTube videos.
Yeah. Yeah. It is what it is. And like you, I think that's where I spend the majority of my time. So I want to get into sponsorships and brand deals.
Yeah.
I know when I was starting, I mean, I don't even, I think the first sponsor I probably worked with, my channel was like, I was trying to find it the other day. YouTube makes it a little harder to go back and see exactly, but I mean, I think it was way under 1,000 subs when BeLive approached me, and I was actually producing videos for them, and then StreamYard and everything.
Yeah.
Personally, over time, more recently, is I've started kind of waffling between, do I want to continue to do sponsorships and not? And I'm sure if anybody's ever watched any of my videos, they're like, "Well, you do sponsorships." Well, I do. And even then, I've gone all over the place. But one of the things that kind of sparked this today was this tweet. We'll stay with the way it is. It's it's a tweet, dadgummit, that you wrote, and you had shared a video which I had not seen. So thanks for sharing that, because I actually went and watched the entire podcast from The Verge.
Yeah,
which was called "AI Will Kill the Creator Economy." Kind of get your attention. But then this is what Jason had tweeted. He said, I've decided simply not to play this game anymore. I'm moving away from brand deals and focusing on what I have to offer the world. All creators with a product focused business are advertisers, and anyone who says different is delusional. AI is a tool. And that really got my attention because I've seen then since then that, there are other YouTubers that are like, this is it. There's a younger guy named Schaefer Nickel or something like that.
Mm.
And he just posted something the other day. This is the last sponsored video I'll ever do. In fact, he even jokes in there. He's like, look, if I have to get a job at a laundromat or pouring concrete, I'll just do that. And then I think he launched a Patreon with it as well. But then on top of that, Gospel Stats just posted something where they were saying that, there's been like a 53% increase in sponsored videos.
Yeah.
So what got you to that point of saying you're kind of done playing the game? I think is exactly you don't want to play the game anymore.
Right. I mean, it was several things. So when I did live streaming on Amazon, like I started off, they had a beta program of their Amazon Live, sort of streamer thing.
Mm-hmm.
And me and a few other folks that I knew from the tech space were doing that, and they were paying like in Amazon gift cards. but it was a decent amount of money, it was a couple $100 an hour really for 5, and you could stream 5 hours a week.
Wow.
And this was during COVID, so everybody was on Amazon, everybody needed to get their things, and so I did that. But then they took it out of beta and went live with it and started paying real like commission based. So there were tiers, and if you got to the highest tier, then you got like, I think it was like $5,000 a month.
No, nice.
And I was just like, okay. And honestly, like it wasn't that hard to make those tiers, because the way Amazon usually worked was if they click on your video or one of the products that you're featuring from your little carousel, it didn't matter if they bought that or if they went and bought, a mini dirt bike.
Yeah.
You still got credit for the amount of money for the sale. And so, I mean, that was a pretty good deal. And I enjoyed doing the streaming, because sometimes when you're making YouTube videos about products, you feel like, and especially if it's a sponsored video, you feel like, you're kind of part of the marketing plan. But with the Amazon Live stuff, I could talk about stuff that I knew and liked and thought would be good for people to, because I could populate my carousel with whatever I wanted.
True.
But then Amazon changed the rules, and basically overnight, my like 80-90% of my income, poof.
Wow.
So I was fortunate enough to hook on with a manager who was doing product, getting people sponsorships with different brands, and started working with him. I mean, and there were some seriously lean months there in the beginning of like 2023.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where I was making a few sponsored videos a month, maybe with a month. The thing is, like, if you really want to have consistent income with sponsored videos, then sponsored videos have to be 100% your focus, and you want to fill all your spots with sponsored stuff so that you have money coming in every month, right? Because it's all net 30. So you might put out the video, but you don't get paid for 30 more days. And so, I kind of tried to balance doing the stuff that I did on my channel with some sponsored videos peppered in there, and, did okay. But where I really started to see that it was not a game that I wanted to play as seriously as I had to. I mean, really, it was like any port in a storm at first. But once I got my feet under me, I kind of had some time to step back. And I never did videos for products that I didn't like or that I didn't think would be beneficial for my audience to know about. But I might have been doing some weird videos,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I did a video for, like, I did a at CES last year. I did a bunch of, sort of like a collection of, here's the cool stuff at CES, and a lot of them were sponsored, and it was like fans and pool cleaners and just but
And just in case people don't know, CES stands for Consumer Electronics Show, which is
right.
typically in Vegas. It's huge.
Yeah, every January,
Yeah.
first week of January, I think they have 10,000 people that come, or
It's
20,000.
insane.
It's really big. And a lot of YouTubers, they go out there, and it's a great place to network and get to know brands that maybe you want to get
Hmm.
more familiar with. But for established people, it's also a way to at least offset the cost of making the trip. If not, bigger YouTubers are definitely like making some money at a time when you can't really make, the AdSense goes way down in
Yeah.
that first third of the year. And so yeah, it's, so I did that stuff. But really, I mean, like I was saying, I was a teacher. I'm a writer. I have all of this background in being a creative person. I'm 54 years old, and somehow, like, I went full time as a creator at 48,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't in a way that I expected to. I wanted music to be the way that I paid my bills. I wanted, writing paid my bills for a while as the teaching gig. But I finally got to go out on my own with being a creator. But it was, I don't want to sound like, I don't want to sound like I didn't enjoy doing the videos, or I didn't or that I was doing some, nobody was holding a gun to my head
Yeah. Yeah.
and saying, like, you must make these sponsored videos. And a lot of times, I was getting paid relatively well. So, there's no problem with it. And I know many people who are like, they're down with it, and that's the way that they're cool with making their money. But I found it to be sort of a no growth game.
Mm.
At a certain point, you're getting these sponsored videos, and they're sending you the products, and you just, eventually your rates will creep up. Maybe you'll do a few more, but I just didn't want to be caught in that sort of, I'm part of the marketing campaign game. Um,
So
and there's
was some of the feeling that you you were not kind of your own boss, you weren't your own employee, you weren't your own solo creator anymore.
right.
You were you were actually working for somebody
Yeah.
who could dangle the money over and say, and this is what you've got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times it was never the kind of thing where, like, they would send you a script and say, just read this. It was,
Right.
um, and a lot of people who've been able to build up and have gotten to a place where they're like, well, nobody sees this before I put it out. And sometimes I was able to do that, but a lot of times, and I totally understand it from being on the other side of
Yeah.
marketing. Um, the brand wants to see the video beforehand to make sure that you said the product name right,
Yeah.
to make sure that you didn't, mess up and make a claim or put out a number that wasn't correct. So I never got like editorial notes. I held that stuff for myself, but it was more involved than just like being a solo creator and making your own content plan and really
Yeah.
executing.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I felt like, even if I wanted to really bear down and execute a content strategy on my channel, like, the sponsorships didn't always fit. So I was always kind of like just moving along the same plane,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like a channel is a living, breathing thing, right?
Hmm.
And there has to be some through line of a narrative that goes on with your channel. And, Painfully Honest Tech suggests a narrative, and Painfully Honest Tech making sponsored videos seems a slightly a disconnect.
Mm.
I mean, the reality of it is you got to make money. AdSense isn't what it used to be, and those opportunities are there. And I have my lines in the sand of what I'll do and what I won't do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to really get into something that allowed me to share, like I said in the tweet, allowed me to share what I personally have to give, which is the knowledge that I've gained over 30 plus years of being a solo independent creator. The 13 years that I've been on YouTube and the 1,500 videos that I've made, and
That's amazing.
I think it's like 36 or 37 million views at this point.
Yeah.
And, I've seen other people have views like I can't even imagine, like an MKBHD is in the billions. It's like,
yeah.
And so, but that to me is like a valuable skill set, in the sense that I can shorten the gap for people who really are sitting there thinking like, is this me? How do I do this? What is the first step? What is the 50th step? So I've actually started another channel, and on that channel, which is just Jason T. Lewis, and on that channel, I'm making videos about building a channel and a brand that is authentic to yourself. You bring your interests and you bring your passions to the platform.
I think that's huge.
And I think that so much of, and it's a changing landscape all the time.
Yeah.
So much of like YouTube education is about like, how do you get your first 1,000 subs? How do you get your 10,000 watch hours? How do you those things are not nearly as important as, to me, as building that narrative for yourself.
Yeah.
Telling the story that you have, whether it's, your passion for coin collecting.
Yeah.
But there's a story there.
Yeah.
There's something that, you started collecting coins when you were 5, and now you have all these coins and you can tell all the stories.
Yeah.
How you got them, and you can give advice to other collectors. I mean, it's something as simple as that. So when people talk about niche or niche, which is a pronunciation that
whichever one,
that pronunciation is always like a little bit of nails on chalkboard to me. But I know it's a gray area.
Yeah.
And I accept that.
Yeah.
But there's so much focus put on that. And to me, the whole thing is, your niche is you, in the sense that your interest in a certain topic is what brought you to the platform. Right.
Yeah.
And I think talking about finding a niche is kind of a cart before the horse thing. It sounds like there's an external thing that you have to insert yourself into. And really, my feeling is, and this is what I struggle with this with the sponsored videos, and I struggle with this, it's like, I love tech. I've been, just kind of casually and not so casually a geek about tech stuff since I was a kid. We grew up in that era where all the tech was brand new. Like my grandparents had a TV that had like a little Zenith clicker thing that made a sound that changed the channels, right? And then and computers come, and video game consoles and all this other stuff. And so, being born in 1971, like, I grew up with it, and I loved watching it, just grow. One of my friends in college used to sell those Motorola bag phones.
Oh, yes.
and so
the huge ones.
I've just always been fascinated by it. And so, I love that, but that's like not my only thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not, and that's the hard thing, is like, okay, so I've got this channel and I have a niche, but that niche is not exactly telling my story.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? And what is that story? And I think if I started over and just was kind of like, hey, what do I want to talk about? It would be a whole lot more natural to say, I love X and I am passionate about it. I'll talk about it to anybody who will listen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just do it to the ether
Yeah.
in front of
Yeah.
a camera. Um, but I saw a niche that I had a different take on and inserted myself into it, but it's always been an uncomfortable fit.
Yeah.
And so I think as a lifelong creator, as somebody who's been doing it for a long time and has that perspective, I just really believe that, if you hold on to some of that, like, I'm a geek about comic books, and so I'm just gonna rant about comic books,
Yeah.
you know, because I've seen so many channels like take off with a niche,
Mm-hmm.
and then that things change.
Yeah.
Everything's always a cycle, and
Yeah.
if you can't pivot with that cycle, I mean, I feel like it happened to me to a certain extent with smartphones being less and less interesting as the years have gone
Mm-hmm.
on. There's less and less to talk about, and then it's like, you got to pivot.
Yeah.
And for me, like I said, I want to share, and maybe it's my time of life as well. I've got a lot of accrued knowledge,
Yeah.
and I just want to share that with people. And I think, like I said, I don't want to sound too negative about brand deals or sponsorships because it's part of the world that this exists in. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be the 100% thing that you do to make
Yeah.
your money.
Yeah.
And I think if you're a creator, then what you have that you've built up over time is much more valuable than
Yeah.
what you can bring to the table for a couple of shekels because a
Yeah.
company wants to borrow your clout.
Yeah. I saw Casey Neistat with Colin Samir very recently. It was a great interview, and I should have written the quote down, but he said something to the effect that if you're just creating just for the money, eventually you're just going to burn out.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's just what where's the passion going to be? Now he also says, well, I'm doing very well, because he had the HBO thing, and then he
Mhm.
sold a tech app to CNN and everything like that. And he can kind of do what he wants to do. But I get that because it's something you said that I thought was so powerful about, if you try and figure out the niche before you start creating, it's kind of the cart before the horse. And I mean, I see those questions in the comments where people, they want to chase the money. So they think, okay, that's what I'll create about.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, even if you know a lot about it, unless you think you're just going to throw out a few videos and just cash in and just run with it, it just doesn't work that way. And, you know, I think there's that fine line of, I've always had a great relationship with the sponsors I've worked with.
Yeah.
I've probably not done more deals than I've done deals.
Yeah.
Some I just say no to, some I never even reply to, some we don't come to terms on, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But do you feel like at some point you're selling out when you do sponsorships and brand deals?
That's a hard question. And I kind of think of it, so having grown up in sort of an indie rock, punk rock world in the late 80s and early 90s, mid 80s, there was a lot of focus that people put on in terms of selling out. Like if you've been
Mhm.
signed to a major label instead of the indie label that they were on, they sold out. And the older that I've gotten, the more I've realized that they're selling out when you just go all in and say, like, I'm here for the money,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
And
To that
yeah,
extreme. Yeah.
yeah, where
Yeah.
like you won't do anything unless it's got dollars attached to it.
Yeah.
And but then there's that other side of it where it's like, you know what, this is part of the game. I worked really hard to get myself to the point where I could have this opportunity to support myself and make content that I believed in. But I have to, in order to do that, because I haven't gotten, I haven't gotten to the place that Casey Neistat has gotten to.
Yeah.
I have to, triage things and make those deals that I feel like, okay, this is something that, that I'm interested in, or and I think my audience would be interested in, and just kind of, those are the questions that I ask. Like, is it a product I feel okay about? And, a lot of times I work with brands that I've worked with that I was reviewing their stuff before they were paying me.
Mm.
Right. And so I believe in the product. And then I also believe that it would be beneficial to my audience.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't wash, then I usually say no. I mean, I have two standard responses in my Gmail. One is, I don't think this product is right for me, but I look for, please keep me in mind for future opportunities.
Yep.
And the other is, I'm very interested. Let's continue to talk. I've attached my rate card, et cetera, So I try and make it so I'm not working with the manager that I was working with before.
Mm.
And I've taken it all back for myself. And in a way, it makes it easier to make the choices because there's not the intermediary there.
Yeah.
And you're kind of it. At a certain point, it was very beneficial to me to have somebody acting as my intermediary because I was just trying to stay afloat. But once I got to the point where I was getting work pretty regularly enough to support myself, I thought, I can bring this back and kind of take it on and make choices for myself.
Yeah.
I kind of know the lay of the land a little bit after a few years of doing it. So no, I mean, I don't think it's selling out because my goal is not to make sponsored videos for other people for money. My goal is to share what I've got to share. And this is one of the ways that I can continue to do it and pay my bills.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And the Casey Neistat example is kind of a great example because Casey Neistat, and this is what I think is very important to think about. You have to think about yourself at every point in your career as a curator of your career, right? Because every decision that you make at any particular point is going to have its pluses and minuses when it comes down to where you go in the future. You're only as good as your reputation.
Yep.
And I've gone through phases where I felt like people were questioning my reputation. But I mean, that's the nature of the internet as well. So you kind of have to just get used to the fact that some people are not going to know enough about the situation or you to really have a valid take on the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you just let those roll off but always think about like, hey, if I do this, and like if I were to make, I'm trying to put it into a context that would work for me, something about a product that like I was so dead set against for a long time, and it was clearly, I was clearly being sponsored and getting paid. Like that would be a place where I think it's justified to question.
Yeah.
But Casey Neistat has, he's done the work. I mean, he did, was it 2 years of daily vlogging?
Oh yeah. It's something insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and if you haven't done video creation, it I don't want to say you can't understand it. I mean, everybody goes to work and does a job. It's hard.
Yeah.
But to do it every day for 100 weeks or whatever it was.
And he's more of a storyteller too. It wasn't just like it was a video of him pouring coffee. and,
Yeah.
rambling on, like I do.
Yeah.
But
No,
it was all, everyone just, it was so good.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, to do that every day, goodness.
Yeah. And he had, by the time he was done, he had 2 small kids.
Yeah.
And I've been there. I know what
Yeah.
I'm back there again. We have our grandson living with us, and it's definitely you have to be able to say to yourself, like, okay, there are times when you have to think, like, how am I going to pay the bills this
Yeah.
month? If you want to be a full-time creator, it can't be about the money. Like, it has to be because you want to make something, and you want to communicate with people, and you want to sort of share with the world in some way. And that has to be the first thing that you're focused on. And then you focus on just the different steps, whether it's, I think people who are just starting out put too much focus on 1,000 subscribers and 10,000 watch hours to get monetized. I mean, back when I started YouTube, like
Back in
there
the
was
day.
there was no partner program, and then they opened it up to some people, and you had to get invited,
Mm,
and you had to be at a certain, I don't even remember how that process worked, but I got
yeah.
invited. But from the time I entered the partner program to the time that I got a check from YouTube was like 2+ years.
Wow.
You know, I
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten when I had that million view video, like that was a good month to, after that happened, that was a very fun month
Yeah.
to open
Yeah.
up the bank account and say, hey, look at that. But I mean, if you start out on YouTube, you have to just accept that you have to make 100 videos
Mm,
that nobody's going to watch. and and if you can do that, if you've got the interest and the passion and the curiosity to do that, then the rest of the stuff, like, you learn that stuff as you go.
yeah.
But if you get to 5 videos and you're like, nobody's watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll get that occasionally. Somebody will, leave a comment about, I can't get any views and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And you go and check and it's like, dude, you've done 12 videos
Yeah.
and they're all over the place.
Yeah.
You have to give it time. Going back to sponsorship and things like that too, I think everybody has to make their own choice.
Yeah.
What's for them? And granted, what's your financial situation and where are you in life?
Right.
I've got a little bit more years on you. I'm 64.
Yeah.
So, we've had time to save over time where somebody may be, just out of college or younger or have gone through some really bad financial times.
Right.
And that's tough. But it's interesting in it just feels like we're at a weird spot right now with AI coming in and
Yep.
Meta's promise, like, well, we'll just make the ads for you. We'll just use our AI tool and make the ad for you, which almost just completely
Yeah.
just almost slaps in the face of anybody creative. But then I saw Tim Ferriss recently say that he was not going to do any more, not crowdfunding, but like Patreon or anything like that, and strictly go to a sponsorship model because he was going to do this, where people could pay and stuff like that. And he said, I'm going to paraphrase. He said, I just kind of got full of myself and found out that people would rather, they'll sit through the ads and they'll accept that because they know I have to make money,
Right.
but they didn't really want to pay me. And then I've seen other creators say, I would rather just, like, I think you're going to work for myself,
Yeah.
create my own things, and keep as much of the money as I can because I feel like there's more pride there.
Yeah.
Are you seeing kind of that battle going on right now?
Yeah. I think so. I think that, And I remember, 1 and 2 years back listening to the Think Media podcast, and Sean Cannell has been talking about like the creator economy is like forecasted to grow exponentially
Mhm.
over the years, and AI will certainly make it easier to make content or to repurpose content. I mean,
Yeah.
or any of those things just on the most basic level. And I think that anybody who's not considering AI as a tool needs to think about that a little bit more. But for me, by the middle of this year, like June, July of this year, I was like, I don't want to live the rest of my YouTube or creator career sort of beholden to whether or not
Mm.
somebody wants to pay me to talk about their product. So I started this whole new channel and sort of went on this whole new journey so that I can be the product
Yeah.
in a way. I'm writing a book. I've got a school community. And I'm setting this all up in the interest of sharing, like I said, sharing what it is that I've learned, and the ability that I have to teach and communicate with people. And I like to think, be a little, I've been known to be a little bit more blunt than others, but to cut to the quick of what really matters about what somebody's doing.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that if I can do that, then I don't want to say like I'm building a personal brand, because that then sounds sort of like I'm the same thing as a niche, right? Like I'm building this avatar of myself to put out there into the world, but
Yeah.
really, like I'm I'm commoditizing aspects of myself that I want people to be able to benefit from.
Yeah.
That probably comes off as sounding like very full of myself.
Well,
But
I mean, it gets into sometimes the questions. What should I name my channel? And I mean, it's I went back and forth in that at some times, and it's just like it's just my name is my name. It's what I do. It's who I do business. People are doing business with me.
right.
I'm the business. But yeah, I think it's interesting too that when and again, I've enjoyed all the sponsors I've worked with.
Yeah.
I may continue to do sponsorships. I don't seek them out at
Yeah.
all anymore. Occasionally I'll think of, oh, that brand would be kind of cool to work with. But I do think there's a difference in creating your own stuff,
Yeah.
because then, the one thing we haven't really touched on, and this is the same with affiliate marketing, is brands can come and go.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you know, you maybe have wrapped up a lot into this brand that either has had a really bad media press day,
Yeah.
or they've gone out of business, or in the case of affiliate marketing, a lot of times where you've built a channel around, some app or something like that now has just decided, oh, we're going to cut the affiliate program, but thanks for
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. In fact, I heard a story from somebody I was in a small group discussion with, who was working with this small brand, and she was working on an affiliate basis, but they had their own employees, and the company had a meeting with her, and they're like, well, we're going to cut the affiliate down to 10% instead of 25.
Hmm.
And she was like, well, why? And they're like, well, you're actually outperforming our entire staff. So, and on one hand, it's like, okay, well, maybe you didn't hire the right people. On the other, on the other hand, it's like, that seems like, it's cutting your nose off to spite your face. You've got this person that's passionate about your product, and you're going to cut
Yeah.
their cut because they're making more money than it was. But weird things can happen
Yeah.
in the realm of business. Relationships can get weird and wonky,
Yeah.
and again, we were talking a little bit before about like that sort of parasocial relationship that you
Hmm.
have. Like, a lot of the people that I work with when I do brand deals are in China.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's definitely there's a cultural difference. There's there's a time difference.
There's a time difference.
You know, in fact, it kind of works out well because like I'll get an email from somebody at like, 4 a.m. and it's like, oh, well, okay, I can work on that today and they'll be asleep, but there's just, and things can change. I mean,
Oh yeah.
COVID was a big change.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of my friends did really well because of the kind of content that they made, and people were shopping for computers and they were shopping for stuff to do, work from home video, all that kind of thing. I was doing mostly like tech commentary where I was just sort of, talking about what the products were, what brands were doing, what the products were doing. It's like, and the market for that in my mind was just like dropped out.
Yeah.
At least my enthusiasm for doing it at that moment was much lower. And then you have things like there was the chip shortage that happened almost in concert with, and that the whole market hasn't really recovered from that fully yet. Because if you're making semiconductors, the growth period is 18 months.
Goodness.
So a semiconductor plant burns down, and that cuts a quarter out of all of the worldwide market. And so then they have to rebuild it. Once they rebuild it, it's 18 months before they have a product.
Wow.
And so that changes everything. If you're talking about tech like I do, then product cycles change.
Yeah.
And, if a new administration comes into the White House or into some other country's leadership and says tariffs or whatever it might be, that changes things too. And you see it almost immediately when you're working with brands.
Yeah.
But when you're building your own thing, and when you have more freedom to build from a platform that is always going to be steady, which is you.
Yeah.
Because I look at it this way. I'm writing a book about, being a creator and sort of the various, not really nuts and bolts things, but just like the mindset of living a creative life. And then I'm making videos that kind of go off that. And then I'm going to, I can make a course that runs off that. I can do small groups. I can do a one-on-one coaching. I can do these things. And it's just a matter of taking the time to build it right.
Mm-hmm.
So by this time next year, like when Black Friday rush comes in October of next year, I want to be like, I don't have to do any of this.
Yeah.
Or I don't have time to do any of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that to me is what's going to take me through to my 60s and into my, I'm going to be engaged and interested in teaching and writing and talking about, this, you wake up one morning in your 50s and you're like, wow, I've been doing this since I was 15.
Yeah.
And most people, you think like most sane people would have quit a long time ago. and yet still here I am, like by hook or by crook. I've had now, I guess this is like my third or fourth, creative life, and each one builds on the last. That's cool. So it's kind of one of those things where you start to see the possibilities that go beyond the very surface level. Like when I finally got to the place where I was like, okay, the best that I can do with this sponsorship game is like charge more money and make more videos. Like, and what do I do after that? There's not much left. And for some people, like I've realized most of my life, most of my friend group was very much like me. Musicians, writers, creative people, and you surround yourself with a group of like-minded people in the real world, right? in the internet world, you there's all kinds of different people,
Yep.
so I might make tech videos, and I'm a really like, I come from the creative side first. I'm terrible at math. I just don't even think about that stuff. And then there are some people who are just like very precision based, and every shot is planned and everything. And like, I found that like sometimes there's a communication barrier
Mm,
even.
yeah.
And I've never been exposed to a lot of people that aren't like me but do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But
so
see, that's good though,
yeah,
because
no.
there's an audience for everything.
Yeah.
Maybe big, maybe small. It may be just what you need, but there's an audience for everything. So
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. But for me, like, I just, when I went full time, I wanted to have time to write. I wanted to have time to get back into music. And 5 years down the road, I realized that like I hadn't written or made any music
Ah,
for
yeah.
like years. And
Yeah.
and I just like, and I did that math of like, yes, it's it's not about who I'm working with or what I'm working with. It's just about how I'm spending my time,
Yep.
and whether or not there's a better way for me to scale and be be the person that I want to be.
Yeah.
And all of those things are, it's kind of goes back to the niche conversation,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm a writer and a musician and a YouTuber and all of these different things, but put them all together, and it's like I'm somebody who's figured out how to live a creative life and make it what I do
Yeah.
into my middle age.
Yeah.
and there's a lot to offer people, you know, just in just in the telling those stories, really, even,
I love that.
yeah, because, and when I finally sort of had that moment about 6 months ago, I was like, well, what would I rather do?
Mm,
And I think I'd rather roll the dice on sharing and telling my stories and helping people from
mm.
that place, into my next phase of life, whatever that might be. And the sponsorships just don't feel like a natural part of that. And
That's
I think
yeah.
everybody has to make that choice.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
Casey Neistat on down, you have to start to choose what it is that you're really passionate about. I've got several sponsorship videos that I'm working on right now that are going to take me through the end of the year. And, if I'm smart about it, I'll have a little bit of money that I can stick over to the side to pay my portion of the bills. And then I've got another 3-month window where I can bear down and work on this thing that I want to, finish up this book and make some more of these videos and just go from there. But I think you have to be ready to change.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready to just say, like, okay, I've done this for 10 years, but I don't know I'm not going to quit, but I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I was so impressed, a couple of years ago now, when you kind of found that groove for yourself, talking to folks who were trying to start this thing out, and they were a little bit older. I was really excited to see your channel take off, because it was heartening to me to see, like, Kevin's been doing this for a long time, and he's always been really good at it. And I love that he's finding that audience right now, and that they're responding to him and what he has to say. That was really heartening to me.
I
It meant a
appreciate it.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I think finding that community and the community responding, I can't take that to the bank, but sometimes it's better in a way,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
No,
know?
because I mean, it goes back to that whole, like, a band can live off and make more money from 1,000 passionate fans than they can whatever record label wants to give them huge amounts of money that they have to pay back.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If you build that small core group of people who are super passionate about what you do, there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah. Oh, it's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. So I've said it to you, in our DM conversations, and I say it to you, quasi live here, that I was so happy to see you find that audience,
Thanks. Yeah.
because clearly there was a need there, and you filled it in your own way. I know there are other people who are making similar kinds of content, but I think for you, coming from where you are, as having all this experience as a creator, having worked in television and
Yeah.
done the online video thing for so long, like, you've got a different thing to offer than the other people that might be in that space as well.
Yeah.
So
I appreciate that. And yeah, you've always been kind by shooting me a text or something and saying that. So
yeah, no, that's I think the important lesson to take away, like, if you're somebody who's interested in starting on YouTube, or you've started on YouTube and you maybe don't know where you're going with it yet, is that it's a sort of collection of destinations. And some people might reach one destination faster than you. Some people might reach, that destination after you do. Some people might shoot past you.
yeah.
But you just have to walk your own journey,
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, if it's Monday and you put out a video on Monday, then put out a video. I mean, there are only so many things that you can control in this world.
Yeah. That's huge. Yeah.
And you can control whether or not you participate.
Yeah.
And then, you string weeks together, weeks become months, become years, and the next thing you know, like I was saying, in 2016, going 3 videos a week, which I don't know if that would work the same way that it did then now.
I couldn't do it.
but I was still working my full-time job, kids in high school, the whole deal. But I was like, I think if I do this, I'll build up a momentum that'll take me to that next level. And it worked. I don't know if it would work now. I don't know if I could do it now. Like, I seem to be able to make 2 videos a week, barely.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And part of that is just the way my brain works, but be that as it may, like, everybody goes on their own journey. So
absolutely.
So yeah, it's like, just wake up and do your thing that day. If you don't, if it doesn't get done that day, put it on the list for the next day and make sure that you get it done. And it's really a game. It's a game against yourself,
Yeah.
And
yeah, you think of you're your own competition, really. Just think about that. Yeah.
What I really got locked onto when YouTube became a thing, there was that there were always gatekeepers. When I wanted to be, get a record deal, you always had to get people to show up at your show who would then, like, sign the paper, and then you would get to walk through the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with writing. But then YouTube comes along, and any schmo with a camera could make whatever video they wanted, and have a potential worldwide audience.
That's crazy.
And all the gatekeepers were gone.
Yeah.
And, like, the indie kid in me just got super excited about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's still what excites me about it, is that, like, at the end of the day, I control whether or not I'm in the game. Nobody else has given me permission to do it.
I love that. So, Jason, tell people where are the places, the best ways to find the coolness that Jason is.
Well, YouTube is Painfully Honest Tech. Usually you just start typing painfully, and hit the H and it'll populate. And then my new channel is Jason T. Lewis, and pretty much if you search for that, it'll pop up. And then I'm on Twitter at Jason T. Lewis. I have Instagram, but I don't use it. I'm on Facebook, but mostly I talk to people from high school there. And of course, you can always go. I have a school community, so you can go to my Jason T. Lewis page and find links to the school community and join me there. It's free to join. So
Super cool.
those are the places that I hang out these days.
Well, dude, I've really enjoyed this. I've learned from it. So I know other people
Thank
will
you, man.
as well. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
on here, for sharing your knowledge. And look, I'm excited to see where your next chapters go too. I mean, that's part of the fun here. So
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, man.
sure. But
Yeah,
thanks for being here.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
See you, people.
The peeps. And if you were in high school with him, make sure you reach out.